I grew up in my parents' house. It was an old building, but not the kind that looked scary or abandoned. It was a normal family home in a quiet neighborhood, the type of place where nothing unusual was supposed to happen. I lived there for most of my childhood and teenage years, and for a long time, I never questioned anything about it. The house had 2 floors. Upstairs were the bedrooms and a long hallway connecting them. Downstairs was the living room, kitchen, and a small storage room. Like many older houses, it made noises at night. The floorboards would creak when the temperature changed, and the pipes sometimes made quiet sounds. My parents always explained these noises in simple ways, and I accepted their explanations without much thought. But there was one sound that never fully made sense to me. Sometimes, late at night, I heard footsteps upstairs. When I was young, I assumed it was my parents walking around. Other times, I thought it was just the house settling. The footsteps were never loud or aggressive. They were slow, steady, and calm, like someone walking normally from one room to another. Whenever I mentioned it, my parents told me not to worry. They said old houses make strange noises, and eventually, I stopped asking. Still, even as a child, I noticed something odd. The footsteps always followed the same path. They started near my parents' bedroom, moved down the hallway, stopped for a moment, and then turned back. They never ran. They never paused near my room. They never went downstairs. At the time, I didn't think much of it, but the pattern stayed in my memory. Years passed and I grew up. I moved out, started my own life, and only visited my parents' house occasionally. Each time I returned, everything felt familiar. The furniture was the same. The layout had not changed. The house felt frozen in time, like it was waiting. A few years ago, my parents decided to go on a long trip. They asked me to stay in the house while they were gone to take care of things. It felt strange to live there alone again, but I agreed. I didn't expect anything unusual to happen. The first night was quiet. I slept well and heard nothing. The second night was the same. By the third day, I started to relax, thinking that the footsteps from my childhood were just my imagination. Then, on the third night, everything changed. I was lying in bed upstairs, scrolling through my phone, when I heard it. Slow footsteps moving across the hallway. The sound was clear and familiar. Too familiar. It sounded exactly like someone walking from my parents' bedroom toward the stairs. My body froze. I was completely alone in the house. I knew that with absolute certainty. I stayed still and listened. The footsteps stopped near the top of the stairs, as if the person had paused. I expected to hear a door open or another sound, but nothing happened. After a few seconds, the footsteps turned around and walked back in the opposite direction, calm and unhurried. What scared me most was how natural it sounded. There was nothing chaotic or threatening about it. It sounded like someone who belonged there. I told myself it was nothing. Just the house. Just stress. I forced myself to breathe slowly until my heart stopped racing. The next morning, I checked the entire house. Every door was exactly how I left it. Nothing was moved. Nothing looked strange. I didn't mention it to my parents when we talked on the phone. I didn't want to worry them, and I didn't want to sound foolish. That night, I stayed up later than usual. I kept the lights on upstairs and played quiet music on my phone to avoid complete silence. For a while, nothing happened. Then, around 2 in the morning, the music suddenly felt too loud, so I turned it off. The moment the room went silent, I heard the footsteps again. This time, they were closer. They weren't somewhere in the hallway. They were right outside my bedroom door. I stared at the door, holding my breath, waiting for the handle to move. It never did. The footsteps stopped, as if whoever was there was standing still, listening. After a few seconds, they slowly moved away. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next day, I tried to find logical explanations. I checked the attic and the basement. I looked for signs of animals or loose floorboards. I even walked the hallway myself, trying to recreate the sound. Nothing matched what I heard at night. Everything seemed normal. That evening, I decided to do something for my own peace of mind. I placed my phone in the upstairs hallway and turned on the voice recorder before going to bed. I told myself that if nothing happened, I would finally have proof that it was all in my head. During the night, I woke up to the sound again. Footsteps, slow and steady, moving from one end of the hallway to the other. I stayed in bed, staring at the ceiling, afraid to move, afraid to make any noise. In the morning, I listened to the recording. At first, there was only silence. Then I heard it, clear footsteps, recorded exactly as I remembered them. Not loud, not distorted, but unmistakable. What disturbed me the most was the timing. The footsteps started at almost the exact same time I remembered hearing them as a child. Night after night, always around the same hour. That night, I finally told my parents everything. I expected them to dismiss it, but they didn't. There was a long silence on the phone. Then my mother admitted something I had never heard before. She said that when they first moved into the house, before I was born, they heard footsteps too. They always explained it away and never talked about it because they didn't want to scare me. She also said something else. Over the years, the footsteps slowly became less frequent, almost as if whatever caused them was fading or settling into a routine. That explanation didn't make me feel better. The footsteps continued every night I stayed alone. Same pace. Same route. Always upstairs. Always calm. I started to notice that they never entered my old bedroom. They always stopped just before it, turned around, and walked away. It felt intentional, like a boundary that was never crossed. On the final night before my parents were supposed to return, I made a decision I still think about today. I stood in the dark hallway and waited. I turned off all the lights and stood exactly where the footsteps usually stopped. The house was completely silent. Then the footsteps began again, slowly approaching me. They stopped just a few feet away. I couldn't see anything, but the feeling was overwhelming, like someone was standing right in front of me, aware of my presence. My chest felt tight, and my hands were shaking. I quietly said, "Hello?" The footsteps stopped immediately. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, they turned around and walked away, disappearing into the darkness at the end of the hallway. They did not return that night. I locked myself in my room until morning. When my parents returned, the house felt normal again. Loud, alive, full of movement. The footsteps never came back while I was there. Before leaving, I asked my parents one last question. I asked why the previous owners moved out. They exchanged looks before my father answered. He said they never really knew. The family left suddenly, without explanation, and never came back to the house. Sometimes, when I visit now, I walk through the hallway late at night. I stand still and listen. Most nights, there is nothing. Just silence. But every once in a while, I still think I hear something faint. Not footsteps exactly, but the feeling that the house remembers something I don't. And that whatever once walked those halls may still be there, waiting for the house to be quiet again. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to share yours in the comments. Maybe we'll tell it in the next video. Bye.